purchased this square stock. It's a 1/4 inch square from a steel supply company. But if you're just starting out and you don't want a lot of steel supply companies will either have a drop section where you could maybe find some of this, or they'll want you to order a certain quantity. Another good place to look is, this is garage door spring. It's spring steel, and a garage door company, when these break, they replace them. And so they'll have, you'll see, I'll show you how to harvest some usable material from this, but they'll have, like, this is feet and feet of material. You could make tons of hooks from this, and I basically got it from, you know, if you know any neighbors that having garage door repair, you could just tell them to save it for you. Or you could approach a garage door company, maybe make them a couple hooks or something cool, and ask them if you can have some of the spring that they would throw away. So I got the piece of coil and the vise, and I'm gonna harvest the section that I'm gonna straighten out with my forge. I'm just gonna use an angle grinder. I like these furred thin cut discs, and I'm gonna kind of bend it to expose a section. When I cut it almost through, so like I'm just gonna bend it and it snaps off. And now I have a usable piece that I'm gonna straighten out real quick in the forge. So in keeping with our like teaching thing that we're doing, I'm gonna have Anthony light the forge like I showed him how last time. This is the way I light a propane forge. It's real easy, safe, no one gets burnt. But and it is simple, but there is a sequence to do it. So yeah, you wanna turn the fan on, excellent. Crack the gas tank, then give it a light. So just like that, I mean, there's no big fireball, no big explosion, real safe and controlled, but you just got to do that every time. That's how you light the forge, and now you know. Before I put this in the forge, is I'm making sure the vise is kind of set up in order to grip it real quick. And I'm gonna put this in the forge. It's got a lot of oil and dirt on it. That's gonna like make a big flame coming out of the forge.
Brauner Bursche führt zum Tanze sein bläugig schönes Kind.
It's heating up, but it's not all the way heated up. I'm just gonna take it out real quick and modify one end.
Die Spuren kickt zusammen, schade, dass die Melodie beginnt. Küsst und Herz ein süßes Tanz dreht sich.
We're gonna heat this all up to one consistent temperature, and then I'm gonna just pull it straight. The bigger section that you cut off of that coil spring, the longer it's going to be. And you'll see we'll get an impressive piece out of just that little piece. So it's almost to the right. Everything, you want everything like nice and consistently heated. I'm just going to grab it.
Sie jauchzt und springt, wirft der blanke Silbergolden auf das Zimbal, das es klingt.
We just harvested like 10 feet of material from that spring, which cost $3.99. I guess like 7 feet, I over-exaggerated, but this is all useful steel that we just harvested. We're gonna make hooks out of it now. So I want to talk about shop tools and kind of buy once, cry once. This tool right here, the 4.5 inch angle grinder, is one of the most versatile tools that you can get. You can get thin cutoff wheels. You can get, this is a thin, what I would call thin kerf cutoff wheel. You can get cutoff wheels that are an 1/8 inch that allow you to cut and grind. You can get hard discs. You can get wire brushes, you could get like a ceramic saw that'll cut concrete, but the 4.5 inch angle grinder is one of the most versatile tools, especially if you're starting out. I would get a good one. Like, you can use this tool to break down sheet metal into smaller pieces. You can use it to break down, as you just saw, like coil springs or spring steel into manageable pieces. You could also use it, you can get a flap wheel disc for sanding. I prefer like the furred discs, especially their thin curve cutoff wheels. They work great and they last a lot longer than what you would find in a big box store. So one way, if we didn't have an angle grinder, we could use the hot cut to break this material down into the length of hook that we wanted. But in this case, we're gonna cut off 2 or 3 feet, and we're gonna use that at least for our initial part of making the hook, because today we're making hooks. And so we're just gonna break down this material into a couple 18-inch, 2-foot lengths, something like that. All this material we got for free. Spring steel. Now, the spring steel will forge a little bit different than mild steel. We're gonna have to watch our heat, and we won't be able to work it as cold as we would mild steel. But the price is right, and we're gonna go with our spring steel. It's basically a 1/4 inch, a little less, for what our projects are today. This is an interesting point. This piece of metal that I have in my hand right now is like room temperature. These pieces of metal, notice how they look remarkably, they look about exactly the same. If I pick this piece of metal up, it's probably 600 degrees. It would burn the crap out of my hand. So like in the blacksmith shop, you always want to be very careful with any kind of thing you just cut off or forged, because even though it looks like this piece of room temperature metal, that's still hot enough to really burn you, and it burns like, it really hurts. People always ask me, oh, you must get used to getting burnt all the time. Nope, it still hurts just like it did on day one. So we're gonna make a hook. We're gonna start by making a taper, just like we did last time with the nails. Now remember, this metal is spring steel, so we won't be able to work it as cold. A square taper. Now I'm going to hit it on the diamond and make it into a hex. It almost forged. If I wasn't talking, I want to take this little facet down a little bit to make it a little more rounder. I'm just going to stick it back in there real quick. It won't take long to heat up. So we're just going to hot cut this piece down a little bit. So I got the tip forged where I want it. I'm just going to very gently bend it into a right angle, and then I'm going to just slowly work it around. I'm going to hit it right here to close it up a little bit. Forged like a nice curl shape. There's ways you could refine it a little bit more by just giving it like a squeezing. But once you forge this, you can no longer hit the inside. That's where if it's cold. The other thing you can do is if you want it to open up like that, you can also bring it over to the vise, straighten it up a bit. But that's pretty good for what we want to do. I might take one more heat and kind of refine it a little bit. I typically don't like the curly Q, but I'm just showing Anthony so we get like a traditional hook. I would rather forge this a little more blunt and just have like a hook. To me, that looks better. I'm not a big fan of this, but we're just gonna do it because we're having fun. So let's take one more heat, and when it's hot, you could either you could use scrolling tongs, like I got these right angle. You could use you want to grab it right on the end and kind of twist it. These would be better for that application.
Right. Take it and kind of like, well, that would deform
once
it.
you here set it on the anvil. Once you adjust this part, and it starts to curl along, there'll be a point where you can no longer forge in the inside. You could maybe out a little more even, like almost to the very edge. When it's hot, I wouldn't do it now, but you could work it that way. Like now, like hit it right there, and it'll roll around. Now, if you want it to open up straight, what you're gonna do, I think there's enough heat. You're gonna take it like this. With the flat face. Here, let me adjust it. You wanna hit it right there, flat. Okay, then stop. See how it kind of straightened this spine out? And now I would heat it up again, and maybe you could use the scrolling tongs to pull it around tight. These are 3 sets of scrolling tongs. These are right angle, and these 2 are straight. You're limited by how tight you can make that curly Q by the diameter of the scrolling tongs. You can't make it any smaller than that unless you just forge it like that. Okay. Yeah, just so it looks nice. Pull it towards me. Yeah, not too much. No, that's okay. Take this and lay it, go the other way, and just whack it a little, like very lightly. Okay, stop and see. And whack it right there. It might be too cold, but that's the general idea. That'll straighten it out. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. That's pretty good. Periodically, throughout the process, this will just make your work look cleaner, and you'll be able to see yeah, that doesn't look too bad. If you were working with mild steel, the little end scroll that I made, you could cool it in water, and then you could just use the horn to bend the hook. But in this case, we can't hit that because it's basic spring steel. So the water would make it brittle, and it would like break. So what I'm going to use is like this bending fork, and I'm going to try not to distort the little curly Q I just made on the hook. So I'm going to hook it like that. I'm going to bend it like that. See how it's kind of misshapen? Now I'm going to use the horn. So I'm going to hit it here. It's going to straighten it out. If I want to make it bigger, I just pick a section on the horn. The end's cool enough now where it shouldn't distort. I can make it like whatever I want. Something like that looks kind of pleasing to me. Should be hot enough. I'm going to use the vise. If you're lucky enough to have a vise, Always use it for straightening it. It'll make it straight. So I'm not really happy with that. I'm gonna stick it back in the forge and squeeze this up a little bit. Neck it in a little bit. Like, I like how that looks. That looks pretty cool to me. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of this, but like we're just learning, you know, like a traditional technique. So this bending fork just got us close to what we want, to what's pleasing to our eye. And so we'll see how good Anthony's eye is. Oh boy. So the next step, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upset an area that I can put like a nail in, like we just made last weekend, or a screw, and I'm gonna use a combination. I'm gonna pick an area on my hook, like maybe 3/4, 1 inch, and I'm gonna hit like this. So let me show you on the shelf. It's going to be what's called a half on, half off. So my hammer is half on this, half in the air. But my piece of metal is that's going to make what's called a shoulder under there. And then from there, I'm going to do one sharp blow over here where the anvil is sharp. And then I'm going to move to this radius section and do the same thing. I'm going to define that area, put it back in because I want a nice heat for the next section, and I'm going to use the flat face of the hammer against the anvil to start to squish it out. I'm going to use then the cross peen to like get the metal to spread. So the cross peen looks like this. It will spread the metal out this way and this way, and I'm going to use that to make it real wide. I'm not going to go too crazy, but I just want it widened, and I'm going to use both sides of the anvil. If you watch on Forged in Fire or a show like that, hardly anybody uses this. This is what you use to spread metal out this way. You could also use the horn. That would help. It acts like a reverse image of this. We don't need to do that because we're working with small stock, but there's two faces on the hammer, and you should use both of them. So I come over here to a relatively sharp part of my hammer, or anvil. I'm gonna do half on, half on, half on. And it made a nice shoulder. Since this is real thin stock and I'm talking, it's already cool. Now I'm going to use the cross peen to spread that out. Feeding the blacksmith is okay, just don't poke him. So yeah, pretty cool. I mean, we made some hooks. You know, they're very similar. You could use it for a lot of things. I'm going to use mine for car keys, or actually there's somebody at work that has car keys and they bring them in. I'm going to give that guy that hook. He'll think it's the coolest thing ever. Disadvantage of spring steel is you have to work it while it's hot. It doesn't work as well as mild steel, but the price of the material was free, plus gas, which was kind of negligible. Anthony made a good looking hook. You can do whatever you want, like take it as far as you want. If you don't like how this looks, like make it like you like it. My hook, I'm not quite happy with it. There's one thing that I like how it looks. It makes like a stronger hook once you have the hook defined, and I'm just gonna do it really quick to my hook. So I'm gonna collapse it in just a little bit. Then I'm gonna take my hammer and go like this. You could even make it look like that. It gives it a more same form, but I just did one quick manipulation, and it looks like more organic. It kind of looks interesting. But yeah, it's just a different little fun play on how a hook's made. A guy in our blacksmithing club, Bruce Woodward, showed that. You could make like a compound bend, you could do anything. But that looks different. And it's kind of cool to think there's not another one like it in the entire world. So just a quick little thing you can like true it up a little bit. So I'm just going to put like a beeswax finish on it while it's still warm.